There are two extremely important questions that should be asked and answered by anyone who believes that tithing is obligatory today for those who follow the teachings of Christ and the apostles. Do those of the Jewish faith practice the law of tithing today? Was the law of tithing practiced by the early church? The surprising answers to these two questions should inspire anyone who is serious about knowing and following biblical truth to research this subject further in order to harmonize their life with the requirements of a righteous lifestyle. First, let me clear up a misconception that many have about those who practice Judaism. Those who practice Judaism do not practice the paying of tithes as a part of their religious system. But why not? The answer is, according to the law given by the Creator God through Moses, tithing cannot be accomplished today by any of the tribes of Israel, including the tribe of Judah. They cannot tithe because there is no Levitical priesthood officiating in the nation of Israel, nor is there a temple in Jerusalem in which to officiate. Therefore, it is impossible for any Israelite to tithe in the manner authorized and prescribed under the law of tithing. However, when the Levitical priesthood is again established, those who practice Judaism will tithe in accordance with this law. But what about the early church? Surely members of the early church were required to give a tithe of their income and personal wealth to support the work of the church and its ministry. Was the law of tithing practiced by the early church? The answer is absolutely not, and for many reasons that are revealed in the biblical record. Historical evidence also proves that the members of the early church were not required to tithe. The following are what three scholarly sources record about tithing as it relates to the early church. It is admitted universally that the payment of tithes, or the tenth of possessions, for sacred purposes did not find a place within the Christian church during the age covered by the apostles and their immediate successors. Hastings' Dictionary of the Apostolic Church. It, speaking of tithing, was not practiced in the early church. The Christian church depended at first on voluntary gifts from its members. Encyclopedia Americana. The Schaff-Herzog Encyclopedia of Religious Knowledge explains that when the tithing concept was first adopted by the Catholic Church, it was voluntary in nature. But at the Synagogue of Macon in the year 585 A.D., payment of tithes was made compulsory under threat of excommunication. Secular authorities were then used to enforce this demand. It is interesting to note that nowhere in the historical records of the early church, or the New Testament writings, can one find a record of the church financing its efforts or the ministry through the tithing system. The scriptures and the historical record prove that obligatory tithing was not taught or practiced by the early Christian church. The simple fact is that no biblical authority can be found for carrying over and modifying the law of tithing that was given to ancient Israel. Some say that because God owns everything, He requires that a person give a percentage of their income to Him through the church. Yes, I understand that everything belongs to God, and that we humans are only allowed to use what is His while we are alive. However, I am also aware that there is no law in the biblical record that requires a follower of Christ to tithe 1%, 2%, 5%, 10%, or any percent of their personal income or personal wealth to any church. Is the law of tithing that the Creator God gave to ancient Israel binding on true Christians today? The answer from the Bible and the historical record is absolutely not. However, there is a law that governs the support of the work of the church and its ministry. But this law is not the law of tithing. Are those who teach tithing just repeating what they have been taught without researching the biblical text to determine if tithing is actually required by those who follow the teachings of Christ and the apostles? Are those who teach tithing purposely hiding the truth about this subject from their congregations for fear of the consequences once the truth about tithing is understood? The answer to both of these questions might be yes, depending on the individuals teaching tithing. The origin of professing Christianity's tithing system can easily be found by anyone who wants to investigate the subject. If you want to know the truth about tithing that most professing Christian ministers do not want you to have, and want to know why all of their arguments for paying tithes fall short of biblical truth, get a free copy of my in-depth study, Tithing, Fact, Fiction, or Fraud. Until next time, this is Bud Cockrell from BibleResearch.org.